Hey, good afternoon everybody. Today I want to show new cooks how to put together a lasagna that they can freeze and heat up later in the oven. What you're going to need for this is so I put the pounded ground beef in a pan, and I got a spatula and I'm breaking it up here. You break it up so it cooks quicker, because for a lasagna you really do want to keep at this. You don't want big chunks, you want little nice tiny pieces. So I'll just break it up to start and then let it go at medium for a bit and come back to it. So this is broken up pretty nicely here. I will kind of keep worrying at it with the spatula until I get all the chunks out and down. Let me zoom in a bit here. Okay, so you want all, there's not any big chunks, but you want all the chunks sort of like this one right there. Just kind of work at it with a spatula until you get all tiny little bits, because the smaller the pieces are in the lasagna, the better it comes out. This is a good time to add your spices. No real measurements for this. You just basically get some basil and oregano, and you can use fresh if you want. I use the freeze-dried stuff, kind of sprinkle a bit over the top. I put more oregano than basil. And stir that up so you get the flavors working before you're going to put this in the freezer. I've turned the heat down, as you've noticed, because I want this to cook all the way through, and I want the water to evaporate, but I don't want it to brown. While the meat is simmering, you can get the cheese mixture ready. So scoop out the ricotta into a bowl. Now get your parmesan. You can use any type for this, the fine ground, coarse grate. I happen to have petals today. That's what they had, so that's what I grabbed. And you just get like a rough quarter cup of this. Doesn't have to be perfect. And just put that on. And if you are using powdered, yes, it's a lot easier at this point. So let's see what happens with this stuff. And just take your spoon and start mixing the parmesan into the ricotta. That's looking pretty good. So what you want to do now is just visually cut this into thirds in the bowl, because this recipe makes 3 frozen lasagnas, and that way you don't have to guess later. So come back to the meat and see how that's doing. And as you can see on the bottom, there's a few streaks of grease because I'm using the lean instead of regular, but all the water is gone. So what I'm going to do now, and it's cooked enough but not brown, so this is just right. So turn the heat off and just put this in a bowl to cool off for the time being. So I got the tomato sauce opened and in a bowl. Meat's cooling off, cheese is over there. So what you're going to do next is just get your lasagna sheets ready. Now this pack has 7 sheets in it that I'm going to be breaking in half. So you're making 3 lasagnas out of 14 pieces, which means one of them is going to be 1 piece short. And that's not really a problem, because what you do is just skip the top layer and you're one, piece of pasta out, and it's not really a big deal. So what you do with these is I take them all out first. There's a paper at the bottom. Just put them on the counter. Okay? And take them, fold them in half, and just pinch it and put them back in there. And then just do the rest of them like that. And put the paper on top of it to keep them from drying out while you're working with them. So I got the last sheet broken up. Just set this to the side. Now I got some oil and a pastry brush. If you do not have a pastry brush, you can use just a paper towel bunched up to dab into the oil and wipe the pans with. Take your freezer containers and get these oiled up. So take your pastry brush, or if you're using a paper towel, just very generously wipe or paint on the oil on the bottoms and the sides. The reason you do this is you don't want it stuck to the metal when it's baking, and after you want to be able to just get a spatula down the side and under the bottom so you can plate it nicely. All the pans are oiled up. I'll just set 2 of these aside for the time being. So how you start, you can put a bit of sauce on the bottom. And if it picks up the oil, no harm to that at all. Okay, then you're going to get 1 piece and just push it down on the sauce. So I'm going to get some of the meat here and just put a couple of spoons. And yes, you could divide this into thirds, but you're doing a couple of layers, so as long as you put in about that much, you're fine. Just get some of the sauce and just spoon that on top. 2 or 3 spoons is good. And yes, you can spread it around with a spoon, no problem there. Okay, got another noodle. Push that down. Now for this part, each of the thirds you're going to cut in half because there's 2 cheese layers in each lasagna. There's a meat, a cheese, a meat, a cheese, and a meat. So I've got that third down, and just kind of mash it around with your spoon till it's nearly all evenly covered. Got another noodle. Press that down. These are going to be quite full. A couple more spoons of meat. Sauce. Oops, I got some sauce on the noodle. Oh no. Don't tell anybody. They'll never see it. It's going to be in layers in the oven. Put in the cheese. See? She's covered it right up. Okay, so there's the spoon of meat. And as you can see, yeah, that is about 2/3. Some more sauce. Now this, you should just kind of grab a handful and just sprinkle it on to cover. Try not to go too heavy, because this again is going to be in thirds. And so long as what you've got in the package feels about the same amount as you put on, you're doing fine. That looks nice. So there's your first lasagna. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to get one of these lids and just put it down on here. Always put these with the foil side facing the food. And if you actually have never seen these in the store because you walked right by them, either they're going to be in with the tin foil or baking goods usually. Okay, so there's your first one. What you should do on any food that you're going to freeze is write down what it is and date it. The reason for that is you don't want stuff, you know, in the bottom of your freezer and you have no idea when you made it and you have no idea what it is, you know, and you have to open it up and then you have to guess. This way you know what you've got when you've made it. And most of these are, you should probably eat within a month. That's why I do like this recipe, because it only makes 3. So you're not getting excited making too much of one thing that you're never going to eat. So this is the last lasagna, and as you can see, you're a noodle short, but that's okay. So I'm just going to put on the rest of the meat and the cheese and the sauce. So as you can see, with some judicious eyeballing, yeah, you did use everything. And you got no leftovers, which is nice, because, you know, recipes that have lots of leftovers don't really work well for anybody. We'll just take the rest of the cheese and just cover that up. There you go. I do happen to have one in the freezer left from the test. So what I'm going to do is I'm turning the oven on now, and I'm going to show you from frozen how this is going to turn out. I've got the 3 lasagna I just did fresh. This one just came out of the freezer, and as you can hear, it is not a stunt lasagna, it's a real frozen one. It was made November 26th. Now if you're wondering what the tin foil's for, it's for the lid for the lasagna. Because one trouble you will have with frozen lasagnas, if you don't do this, is that the cheese will stick. Because you do have to cook it covered for the first while. So what I do is I get some tin foil and I make a little lid for it by using the bottom as my shape. Okay, and this ensures that the cover does not stick to the cheese as it melts, and you don't lose half of it when you take the cover off, which is nice, and you get all the cheese. So there's your lid. Now, so flip this back over. So there, yeah, and that's like rock solid. So what you're going to do is you're going to put your lid on carefully. Just kind of get it over the same way. Just pinch it lightly to keep the moisture in. And you're going to pop this into a 400-degree oven. And you're going to cook it for around 40 minutes. So I got these stocked up, ready to put in the freezer. I thought I'd get the scale out just to see and weigh one of these. So it comes out to 786 grams, which is around 28 ounces, which is a little over 1.5 pounds, which is pretty good, you know, for a dinner. This would probably serve 2 people. My timer just went off, 40 minutes. So let's see if the lid did its job and the cheese is still where it should be. Yep. So do a little zoom here. Yeah, so you can see it's starting to melt, but it's not quite where it should be. What I'm going to do is pop this back in the oven for about 10 minutes and look at it and maybe go for another 5 or 10. It all depends on you, on how well you want your cheese done on the top. This has been in for another 10 minutes at 400. I am going to pop it in for 5 more because I can see the cheese is starting to brown around the edges, and hopefully it'll make it to the middle in another 5 minutes. That's been in for another 5 minutes and it's looking just good right now. I've turned the oven off. Now you can either let it rest on the top of the stove because it should set for 5 to 10 minutes. What I usually do is since it's winter, I open the oven door and let it rest in the oven that's cooling off, because that way it browns a little bit more, plus you get some free heat in the kitchen, which is always nice on a cold day. That looks like it's set up quite nicely, and it's cooled down enough that it's still warm enough to eat, but it's not so hot that you can't plate it without it sliding everywhere, which I'll do now. Well, I got the plate and a spatula, so let's hope the olive oil did its job. Seems to so far. Yeah, if you can get this out in one piece, it's a lot nicer. Feels good so far. And just, that might need another, yeah. Just slide that out. And as you can see, there's not too much stuck in the bottom. I will slice that open so you can get a good look at the inside as well. So there's my first time lasagna for all you new cooks. So be brave, give it a shot, you know, get the ingredients, try it out, and I do hope you like it. And as always, thank you for watching, hope to see you again, and hey, if you like it, tell your friends. Thanks a lot, bye-bye.